Yeah. Oh no. Oh dear. All right. If everyone can make your way towards seats.
So we're gonna do the alternating Yigdal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great.
Good. Before you know it, we'll have a recording contract.
I know, right? They're gonna love us.
My dream.
Yeah. All right, if everyone can make your way to your seats, we're going to get ready to start in a moment. Gmar Chatima Tova, everyone. Shana Tova, may it be a good year. Maybe we all be inscribed in the book of life. Here we go. It's the finals. I know football season is just warming up, but here in the Jewish games, we are rounding towards the end. So here we go. As we come together in this culmination period in which we have tried to repair our relationships and the wrongs within ourselves, if there's anything left to do, now is the time to do it. Like in this one old joke, in which two members of a congregation have been feuding for years. On Yom Kippur evening, just before the Kol Nidre service, the rabbi brings together the two men in his office. You must make peace, he commands. What is the point of going into synagogue and asking God for forgiveness when you can't even forgive each other? Both men are moved. They hug and promise they will not fight anymore. When services end, one of the men greets the other. I prayed for you, everything you prayed for me, he says. Starting up already, says the other one. Let's pledge to do better than those two and really think about how we can repair within ourselves and in our relationships this Kol Nidre service as we begin Yom Kippur. This evening, when we begin our Kol Nidre ritual that we're about to do, we are changing this synagogue. It's actually not a synagogue. You might have thought it was. It looks like one, but it's actually about to become a courtroom. We are going to bring out the Torahs as witnesses. We are going to be challenged on our vows as having legal stature, as having held us hostage over these last 12 months. The words that bound us will now be relinquished. I don't know, there's a lot of lawyers who could probably talk more educatedly about what exactly it is we're about to do, but we're going to relinquish ourselves from our vows. Our Torahs are going to be our witnesses. The Holy One is going to be the judge, and we are all going to be the plaintiffs together. And so as we think about what vows we might have taken this year, or if not a vow, right, in ancient times, vows were taken very seriously. If you ever swore anything in the name of God, it was taken extremely seriously. Nowadays, we unfortunately use God's name in vain all the time, but still we do make promises, and our promises mean something. So think about what promises you made to yourself or to others that you might not have upheld this year, and let's really connect with those so that we can ask for forgiveness and of those vows as we stand in this court this evening. And so going to ask, did someone get the opening poem, Rick? Yeah? Okay. Oh, Sally Jo. Excellent. Why don't you come up here? She's going to read us a little poem to get us started, and then we will turn to our Kol Nidre service. And we do not have a mic here, so why don't you grab that? Why don't you stand over there with that mic? Yeah. Forgot a mic.
Kol Nidre by Elizabeth Topper. All the promises I deny, the labels I affix, the vanities I cherish, the image I project, the shell that shields me from changing who I am, the vow that stops me from being something more, the bonds that tie me to last year's former self, I now relinquish from this Yom Kippur to next.
Amen. So let's all get started on page 204. The ark is going to be opened, and we'll call upon those who are going to be holding the Torahs to come on up here. Get those out.
They gonna bring? No. They're gonna bring the Torahs to the sides. Here, right?
Who can understand the source of our errors? Cleanse me of secret faults, and restrain your servant from willful sins. May they not control me. Then shall I be innocent of wrongdoing, wholly clear of transgression. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and my redeemer.
Or zaru Allah tzadik, ul yishreh lehev simecha. Or zaru Allah tzadik, ul yishreh lehev simecha. Or zaru Allah tzadik, ul yishreh lehev simecha. Beyeshiva shel mala, v'yeshiva shel mata, al dahat hamakom, ve'al dahat hakahal, anu matirin להתפלל עם הווריינים בישיבה של מעלה ובישיבה של מטה על הדעת המקום ועל דעת הקהל אנו מתירין להתפלל עם העבריינים בישיבה של מעלה ובישיבה של מטה על המקום ועל דעת הקהל אנו מתירין להתפלל עם העבריינים.
By the authority of the court on high and by the authority of this court below, with divine consent and with the consent of this congregation, we grant permission to pray with those who have transgressed. Let's read together a meditation on Kol Nidre in the left margin. All the vows on our lips, the burdens in our hearts, the pent-up regrets about which we brooded and spoke through prayers without end on last Atonement Day did not change our way of life, did not bring deliverance in the year that has gone. From mountain peaks of fervor, we fell to common ways at the close of the fast. Will you hear our regret? Will you open our prison, release us from the shackles of habit? Will you accept our prayers, forgive our wrongs, though we sin again and again? In moments of weakness, we do not remember promises of Atonement Day. Recall that we easily forget. Take only our heart's intent. Forgive us, pardon us. Let's turn to Kol Nidre on page 205.
Kol Nidre Service v'charamei v'konamei v'chinuyei v'kinusei u'shevu din darna od ishtabana od acharimna Vedar sarna al nafshat hana miyom kippurim ze ad yom kippurim haba Aleinu letovah kulhon icharat navehon kulhon yehon sheran Shevitin Vetelinu mevutalin Lashririn Velakayamin Nidrana Allah Nidre Ve'asarana Allah Esare Oshevuatana Ela Shevuot Kol Nidre Ve'asare V'charamei Ve'konamei Ve'chinuyei Ve'kinusei U'shevuot Din darna Udishtabana Udacharimna Anafshatana על נפשתנה מיום כיפורים זה עד יום כיפורים הבא. עלינו לטובה כל הון יכרתנה והון כל הון יהון שרן שוויקין שוויקין בטלין מבוטלין אל השרירין ולקיימין נדרנה הלה נדרי וסרנה לא אסרי ושבועתנה לשבועות כל נדרי ויסרי וחרמי וקונמי וכינויי וכינוסי ושבועות דין דרנה ודהשתבחנה ודחרימנה ודסרנה על נפשתנה מיום כיפורים זה עד יום כיפורים הבא. עלינו לטובה כולהון יכרתנה והון כולהון יהון שרן שוויקין שוויקין בטלין ומבוטלין אל השרירין ולקיימין נדרנה לה נדרי ואסרנה לה אסרי ושבועתנה לשבועות.
All vows, renunciations, bans, oaths, formulas of obligation, pledges and promises that we vow or promise to ourselves and to God from this Yom Kippur to the next, may it approach us for good, we hereby retract. May they all be undone, repealed, canceled, voided, annulled, and regarded as neither valid nor binding. Our vows shall not be considered vows, our renunciations shall not be considered renunciations, and our promises shall not be considered promises.
ונסלח לכל הדת בני ישראל ולגר הגר בתוכם, כי לכל העם בשגגה, ונסלח לכל הדת בני ישראל ולגר הגר בתוכם, כי לכל העם בשגגה, ונסלח לכל הדת בני ישראל ולגר הגר בתוכם, כי לכל העם בשגגה. סלח נא לעוון העם הזה כגודל חסדך, וכאשר נשאת לעם הזה ממצרים ועד הנה, שם נאמר, ויאמר אדוני סלחתי כדברך, ויאמר אדוני סלחתי כדברך, ויאמר אדוני סלחתי כדברך. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
And Moses prayed, as befit your abundant love, please forgive this people's sin, just as you have always forgiven this people from the time of Exodus and from Egypt until now. And there it further says, Adonai replied, I have forgiven, as you have asked. The Torahs will now be returned to the ark. And we all heave a sigh of relief as our promises are forgiven. Bit lighter. The ark will be closed, but we remain standing, turning to page 207 for the call to prayer.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך, ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
You may be seated. Let's read together in the left margin on 207. Beloved are you, eternal God, by whose design the evening falls, by whose command dimensions open up, and eons pass away, and stars spin in their orbits. You set the rhythms of day and night, the alternation of light and darkness, sings your creating word. In the rising sun and in spreading dusk, creator of all, you are made manifest. Eternal, everlasting God, may we always be aware of your dominion. Beloved are you, Adonai, for this hour of nightfall.
ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב הרבים
continue on page 208, Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amcha.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל, עמך אהבת. תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו, בשכבנו ובקומנו, נשיח בחוקיך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ויורך ימינו, ובהם נקה יומם ולילה. ויבאתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל.
Middle of 208.
שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד.
ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשכבך ובקומך ובשרת מאות על ידך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. We continue silently, page 209. והיה אם שמות לשמוע מצוות השם.
למען ירבו ימיכם וימי בניכם על האדמה אשר נשבעת לכם, לתת להם כימי השמיים על הארץ.
Middle of 209. ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל, ואמרת עליהם, ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציצית הכנף פתיל תכלת, והיה לכם לציצית וריתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אדוני אלוהיכם. Amen. Continue silently.
קיים אין זולתו ואנחנו ישראל עמו. ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ומרים ובני ישראל, לך אנו שירה בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות הוסיף אלה, מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה, זה לי אנו והמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגולו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גל ישראל.
Let's say a prayer for protection and peace in the night together in the English on page 211 responsively. Allow us, Adonai, our God, to sleep peacefully and to awaken us again to life, our sovereign. Shield us, remove from us enemies and pestilence, sword, starvation, and sorrow, and remove the evil forces that surround us. Ensure our going and coming for life and peace, now and forever. Over all the people of Israel and over Jerusalem.
ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ברוך אתה אדוני הפורס סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים.
I have to say, for those of you who haven't had a chance to be in the sanctuary so much in person yet, I'm still really, after a year without getting to do prayers responsively so much, I still really love it when we get a chance to do responsively, that chance to hear you all speaking together as one back at me. It's a really lovely, beloved dialogue, I think, that we get to have in shul, even if it is just a responsive English reading. So just wanted to remark on that before it passed by. We're going to go on to the Chatzi Kaddish on page 212.
כי ביום הזה יכפר עליכם, לטהר אתכם מכל חטאותיכם, לפני אדוני תטהרו.
Let's rise for the Chatzi Kaddish.
יתקדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בהלמה דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי בכל בית ישראל בהגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבם מבורך לעולם עולם העלמיה ויתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה בריחו לילה לילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה ויאמרו Amen.
You may be seated. I'm going to do my sermon, and if anyone is having a little bit of trouble hearing the definition in my words, I have a couple of extra copies printed out of the sermon. Oh, maybe Harvey has them. Oh, you gave them out. Great, excellent. Okay, hope you can all hear me, and if you can't, that you have accessible ways of hearing my sermon. I have a little dream, wrote Rabbi Jonathan Sachs of blessed memory. It goes like this. You are wandering through an enormous library. It has millions of books, and you're wandering through, and you're looking at all the titles of the books, and then suddenly, you stop dead. There's a book, and the title has your name on it. You take it out, open it up, and see that there are several hundred pages of that book written by many different hands in many different languages. You try and work out what this book with your name on it is, and with a shock, you realize that this book has been written by your ancestors. Every single one of them has written a chapter in this book telling their story and handing it on to their children. And as you get to the end of the book, you see an empty page with your name on the top. And with a shock, you realize that this is the chapter that you have to write. Now you're standing in the middle of this library. Can you just put that book on the shelf, walk away, and forget about it? To be a Jew is to be a part of the most remarkable story ever lived by any people, Sachs continues. Every one of us has to write a chapter in that story and hand the book on. That is what it is to be a Jew, particularly during Elul and the Yamim Noraim, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I feel great pride when I think about being part of the Jewish people. It gives meaning and definition to my life. I wear my Jewish history proudly. I remember that once in college, a British friend of mine heard campus tour guides noting the remarkable age of the buildings dating from the early 1800s. He scoffed. Americans think that things that are 200 years old are really old. But at my high school, we ate on tables made from the wreckage of the Spanish Armada. In case you need a refresher, my friend was referring to the Spanish ships that tried to attack England in 1588, but wrecked instead on the shores of Ireland. It was rumored that Queen Elizabeth gave the wreckage of these ships to the Westminster Abbey, which made them into tables for their high school, though that claim is unproven. As an American, I did indeed feel humbled by my friend's brush with history. In London, he trod daily on cobblestones hundreds of years older than any I crossed in the US. Yet I felt emboldened when I thought of my Jewish history. American monuments may not approach the age of my friend's high school lunch tables, I told him. But I had taken a trip to Jerusalem and walked in underground tunnels built in the time of King David, over 2,000 years before the Armada. So there. Jews have lived in and among almost every major known civilization. We have lived alongside pharaohs, Philistines, Assyrians, and Greeks, under the thumb of emperors and kings headquartered everywhere from England to India. Our collective has witnessed religions come and go, empires rise and fall. What is the secret to our survival? It is our eternal source of wisdom. The Jewish people have adapted and evolved hundreds of thousands of times, splintering into thousands of branches. Yet no matter how many branches split and grow, Jews remain united by our common root, the Torah, the well of wisdom into which we dip over and over again. Judaism and the Torah are likened to a wellspring of water, that which is life-giving and thirst-quenching. Our sages wrote, "Just as water is the source of life for the world, so is Torah the source of life for the world. Just as water is from the heavens, so too Torah is from the heavens, and just as water restores the soul, so does Torah restore the soul." The wellspring of Torah flows from the ink of 1,000 books, billions of words written in every age and every country. Our people have written it in their laws and their lives, generating a library more rich and varied than any scholar could hope to cover in her lifetime, even if she read in every language through every day. I dip into this well all the time for wisdom, strength, and connection, both professionally and personally, especially in trying times like these. I have seen so many people find meaning in it. Jews in trouble seeking solace through illness and loss. Jews looking to lend gravity and meaning to their joyful celebration of a birth or a wedding or a coming of age. I have seen young adults turn to Torah as they seek direction in life, and older adults turn to Torah when life takes a dramatic turn. So many people have drawn from this well and slaked their thirst for meaning and connection. Yet these days, many American Jews have forsaken the well or have forgotten how to find it. When the Pew study was published in 2013, there was much hay made of a new kind of person the study called Jews of no religion. These were people who described themselves as atheist or agnostic, but who still consider themselves ethnically or culturally Jewish. Last year, Pew came out with another study showing the same trend. Only 16% of people over 65 identified as Jews of no religion, but 40% of Jews ages 18 to 29 did. And while orthodoxy continues to grow steadily, the number of people dedicated to living a modern yet Jewishly informed life continues to shrink. Among the eldest category, 3% identified as Orthodox, 25% as conservative, 44% as Reform. While among the youngest category, 17% identified as Orthodox, 8% as conservative, 29% as Reform, and 41% as no particular branch. This trend is not only happening to Jews, but throughout the American population, across religions. According to The Atlantic magazine, the past 2 decades have seen the sharpest recorded decline in religious affiliation in American history. Today, 1/4 of Americans identify as having no religion. This has left what some commentators call a God-shaped hole in American life, with people seeking meaning in politics and other ideologies with the same fervor they once gave to religion. We are as fragmented as ever, but now we lack religious guidance. As with anything else, Jewish people have seen this before. Jewish people have identified as culturally but not religiously Jewish through many ages and stages of Jewish history. There were Hellenists in the Greek era, Queen Esther in ancient Persia. In Europe, secular Jews in Berlin never mingled with their shtetl brethren. And even Lot chose to live among the Sodomites rather than with his crazy religious uncle Abraham. Where there are Jews, there are always secular Jews. Secular life has given us many things, freedoms and rights and science and technology. These things are wonderful, essential even, but they do not give us meaning. As Rabbi Jonathan Sachs put it, religion survives because it answers 3 questions that every reflective person must ask. Who am I? Why am I here? How then shall I live? None of the hallmark institutions of modernity can answer these questions, he says. Science will explain how, but not why. It talks about what is, not what ought to be. Technology gives us power, but it does not and cannot tell us how to use that power. We can instantly communicate across the world, but still not know what to say. The democratic state gives us the freedom to live as we choose, but no direction as to how we should choose. Therefore, as long as we ask those questions, we will always find ourselves turning to religion. We need the well of Torah as a source of meaning, especially in times as chaotic and confusing as these. In these times, decisions of life and death are made daily, sometimes almost casually. Yet we do not return to the well for guidance. In Tractate Chagiga, the rabbis say that God cries over our failure to return to Torah. Every day, God goes into the innermost chamber of God's palace and sheds tears for one who is able to engage in Torah study and does not engage in it, and for one who is unable to engage in Torah study and nevertheless tries and engages in it, and for a leader who lords it over the community. In American Jewish life today, we have many people who might learn Torah but don't, many people who might want to learn Torah but can't, and many leaders who act superior and fail to lead people to the waters of Torah. The days of awe are our annual reminder not to be those people. The Jewish people have lost our well before. When the Israelites wandered in the desert, they complained bitterly of thirst. This complaint is recorded immediately after the death of Miriam. The rabbis teach that this is not a coincidence, that the well followed the people through the desert because of the merit of Miriam, the prophetess who sang by the sea. When Miriam died, the well dried up with her, and so the people complained of thirst. That's about when Moses and Aaron began hitting rocks and getting in trouble. We must not let the well dry up with us. We must ensure that it will continue flowing after we're gone. In the scholarly community, Judaism is known as a mimetic tradition. That's a fancy way of saying that every generation copies what the generation before them did. Like the joke about the new Jewish bride who's making her first big dinner for her husband and decides to make her mother's brisket recipe, cutting off the ends of the roast the way her mother always did. Her husband says, "It's delicious," but asks, "Why do you cut off the ends? That's the best part." She answers, "That's the way my mother always made it." The next week, she goes to her mother's and watches her make brisket. When she cuts off the ends, the bride asks her mother, "Why do you do that?" And she replies, "That's the way my mother always made it." The next week, they go to the old Bubby's house, and she prepares a famous brisket recipe, again cutting off the ends. The young bride asks her grandma why she does this, and her grandma says, "Darling, that's the only way it'll fit into my small pan." To be a representative of the Jewish people is to represent what was given to you. So if you cut off the ends of the brisket, your children may do so too. If you keep your Jewish customs, your children may do so too. If you study Torah, your children may do so too. Now, of course, children do not copy exactly what their parents do. Each generation must write its own chapter. Judaism adapts and changes. Rabbi B'nai Lappi tells a story of when she was in rabbinical school, and the results of yet another Jewish population survey were coming out. The president of JTS showed up late to her orientation because he'd been on the phone with a prominent sociologist who had analyzed the results. So, what did they say? "Well, there's good news and there's bad news," he reported. "The good news is that Judaism will exist in 100 years. The bad news is that it will be unrecognizable to us." But Rabbi Lappi didn't think that was such a bad pronouncement. She herself was almost kicked out of rabbinical school for being gay. By denying her identity, she was allowed to remain at JTS, where she learned to secretly see herself in centuries-old stories of the Talmud. She says it was like if a donkey could read Torah, then every time they'd see a story about a donkey, they'd say, "Hey, there I am, that's me." Lappi began to see the Talmud in the same way, as full of stories about which she could say, "Hey, there I am, that's me." As a rabbi, she went on to found a yeshiva in which queer people are welcomed and centered as they study Jewish tradition. Each of us needs to write our own chapter in the Jewish book. It's not enough to talk about doing it. Our children and grandchildren do as we do, not as we say. If we want future generations to value and engage in Judaism, we need to show them, not just tell them. We need to value and engage in it ourselves. I have seen Beth El parents do a wonderful job of showing, not just telling. I was proud to officiate at 2 B'nai Mitzvah this year for Ben Yodfat and Matthew Roseman. More than I am proud of the way that each boy showed up and performed wonderfully on the day of his bar mitzvah, I am proud of the way that each has shown up in the days since. Matthew and his mother Bonnie have already attended services several times since his bar mitzvah in August. Uri Yodfat told me that every time he reads Torah, he is going to ask Ben to read too, and already they have chanted Torah together on Shabbat. And it's not only parents, but grandparents. Alyssa and Mark Macher regularly attend services with their granddaughter Mira, and Harvey and Linda Friedenberg logged onto every Zoom Havdalah this year with their grandchildren who live out of town. These people are actively writing their chapters in the book of Jewish history, and in so doing, they are helping their children and grandchildren write their own chapters. In my short rabbinic career, people frequently look at me, notice I'm not over 65, and ask, "Where are all the young people?" To this I respond, Jewish tradition is mimetic. If you want the next generation to write their chapter, then you must be writing your chapter. If you want the next generation to know their ancestors, you too must study the words of your ancestors. We offer many classes at Bethel for learners of all levels. In the fall, we will offer a Hebrew class for beginners, a class on Shemitah, the ancient tradition of the sabbatical year, accessible in English and Hebrew readers alike. And there will be more classes, more opportunities to learn, many more. It's never too late to begin and never too soon to start. If the idea of returning to Jewish study after years out of practice feels overwhelming to you, don't worry, you're not alone. Rabbi Akiva began studying the Aleph Bet at 40 years old, and he became one of the greatest scholars of all time. I too felt overwhelmed when I returned to Torah as an adult. In my 20s, I decided to pursue my interest in the rabbinate, but I hadn't formally studied Jewish texts since the 8th grade. I wanted to make sure I still enjoyed Torah study as an adult before I signed up for another 5 years of it. So I enrolled in a 1-year yeshiva in New York. On the first day of school, the teachers gave us an orientation to the library and its resources. On this shelf were the Tanachim, the Torah, prophets, and writings. I knew about those. Overstuffed volumes with more translations and editions than I'd ever seen. And here were the shelves of Gemaras, rows and rows of books embossed with gold letters. I knew what the Gemara was, but I had no idea it was so long. Then it got trickier. Down there was Gaonic literature, and there was Musar and there Midrash, and on this shelf was modern literature by Rav Kook and Soloveitchik and so on. Other students nodded knowingly, but I stood astonished and embarrassed by what I did not know. Authors, series, and whole genres of shelves unfamiliar to me. I itched with curiosity and shivered in the shadow of this immense challenge. In subsequent years of study, I came to know the names of these genres and authors and series, but still have barely scratched the surface of their wisdom. My mentor, Rabbi Gordon Tucker, the former dean of the JTS Rabbinical School, said that when asked why rabbinical school was so long, 5 whole years, he would reply that rabbinical school was in fact far too short, that it was only designated as a way to get us started on a lifelong journey of learning. The Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu says, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." The rabbis teach in Leviticus Rabbah that the same is true of studying Torah. A closed-minded person says, "Who can learn the Torah? It is only for the sages." The open-minded person says, Didn't that sage learn from someone else? I will learn 2 laws each day and 2 laws each night until I have learned them all like him. A close-minded person despairs of forgetting over time. What have I gained in learning Torah and then forgetting it? While the open-minded person says, doesn't God reward us for the effort? As Jews, the Torah is our reward to take or to leave on the shelf. It is the book with our name on it, the book containing the chapters written by our ancestors, and a blank page at the end for us to fill. How can we walk away? Let's continue our service on page 213 with our silent Amidah. It continues on to page 221. But we're starting on 213 with our silent Amidah.
עושה שלום, שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, עושה שלום, שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום. הוא יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום, שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, עושה שלום, שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום.
If you haven't finished your silent Amidah, please feel free to continue at your own pace. Otherwise, we'll continue on with our Slichot service on page 223, beginning with Ya'aleh, and I'll invite Baruch up to join me to sing the first few lines. This was one of our songs from our Slichot concert the other night. Continue with the same prayer, Ya'aleh, on page 223.
Ya'aleh kolenu me'erev v'yavo tzidkateinu miboker v'yeirah pidyoneinu hadarev yaleinu yeinu meherev v'yavo slichateinu meherev v'yavo lemano mihi boker v'yeirah kipureinu ahadarev yaleh yisheinu meherev v'yavo tahareinu mihi boker v'yeirah taheinu ahadarev ya'aleh zichroneinu me'erev v'yavo v'yudeinu mihi boker v'yeirah hadrateinu hadarev hadarev ya'aleh dafikeinu me'erev v'yahavo gileinu mihi boker v'yeirah bakashateinu hadarev ya'aleh inkateinu me'erev v'yahavo elecha mihi boker v'yeirah eleinu hadarev.
Let's read responsively on 223, the unfolding of the day. May our supplications rise up at evening, our pleas arrive with the dawn, our songs transform the dusk. May our suffering rise up at the evening, our forgiveness arrive with the dawn, our purity transform the dusk. Continue on 224.
שומע תפילה, דרך כל בשר יבוא כל בשר להשתחוות לפני אדוני. ויבואו וישתחוו לפניך אדוני, ויכבדו לשמך. לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה על אדוני. נריע לצור אישנו, נקדמה פניו בתודה. נריע לצור אישנו, נקדמה פניו בתודה. לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה לאדוני. לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה לאדוני. אשר לא היה והוא עשהו, ויבש את ידיו יצרו. אשר בידו נפש כל חי, ורוח כל בשר היא.
Continue on 225.
הנשמה לך והגוף פהלך, חוסה למלאך, חוסה למלאך. הנשמה לך והגוף שלך, אדוני עשה למען שמך. התנו על שמך אדוני, עשה למען שמך. בעבור כבוד שמך, כי אל חנון ורחום שמך. למען שמך אדוני, וסלחת לעווננו, כי רחבהו.
Continue on 226, reciting the 13 attributes of God. A moment of awe.
יום לזכר. תעבור על פשע ותמחה השם, כי יום ויתייצב עמו שם. תאזין שבתנו ותקשיב בנו מאמר, כי יום ויקרא בשם אדוני, ויעבור אדוני על פניו ויקרא. אדוני, אדוני, אל רחום וחנון, ערך אפיים ורב חסד באמת, נוצר חסד לאלפים, נושא עוון ופשע וחטא ונקה, וסלחת לעווננו ולחטאנו נחלתנו. כי פשענו כי אתה אדוני טוב וסלח, ורב החסד לכל קוראיך.
Round 227.
כי הנה כחומר ביד היוצר, ברצותו מרחיב וברצותו מקצר. כן אנחנו בידך חסד נוצר לברית הבית, לברית הבית, ויל תפן ליצר. כי הנה כאבן ביד המסתת, ברצותו חס וברצותו מחתת. כן אנחנו בידך מחיה וממוטט לברית הבית, לברית הבית, ואל תפן ליצר. כי הנה כזזן ביד החרש, ברצותו דיבק לאור, וברצותו פרש. כן אנחנו בידך תומך, אני ורש לברית הבית, לברית הבית, ויל תפן ליצר. כי הנה כהגה ביד המלאך, ברצותו אוחז וברצותו שילח, כן אנחנו בידך אל טוב וסלח, לברית הבית, לברית הבית, ויל תפן ליצר. כי הנה זכוכית ביד המזגג, ברצותו חוגג וברצותו ממוגג. כן אנחנו בידך מוחל זדון ושגג לברית הבית, לברית הבית, ויל תפן ליצר. כי הנה כיריע ביד הרוקם, ברצותו מיישר וברצותו מעקם. כן אנחנו בידך אל כהנו ונוקם, לברית הבית, לברית הבית, ויל תפן ליצר. כי הנה ככסף ביד הצורף, ברצותו משגשג וברצותו מצרף. כן אנחנו בידך ממציא למזור טרף, לברית הבית, לברית הבית, ויל תפן ליצר.
Let's turn to page 229 and read responsively. 228. Tell me, God, my end, the measure of my days, that I would know how fleeting my life is.
We walk about like empty shells. All our efforts add up to little. We pile up possessions, but don't know how to account for our lives.
What then should I hope for, God? Only that you save me from the consequences of my sin.
You observe my walking and lying down, familiar with all my ways.
There is no word on my tongue, but that you, God, know it well.
Escape from your spirit, where can I flee from your presence?
I was never concealed from you, even as I was being shaped in hidden places, knit together in the recesses of the earth.
Your eyes saw my unformed limbs. They were recorded in your book, fashioned over days. They all belonged to you.
It was you who created my innermost ability to feel. You fashioned me in my mother's womb.
Examine me now, God. Look into my heart. Probe me and know my secrets.
If you see within me cause for sadness, guide me toward eternal truths.
Hear my prayer, O God. Give ear to my cry. Do not disregard my tears. Like all my forebears, I am a wanderer, a guest in your house.
Make me an instrument of your salvation, that I might be redeemed before I go away and am no more. Continue on page 229. The red arrow.
אל מלך יושב על כיסא רחמים, מתנהג בחסידות, מוחל עוונות עמו. חטאים וסליחה פשעים, עושה צדקות עם כל בשר ורוח, ולא כרעתם תגמול. אל הורית לנו לומר 13, זכר לנו היום ברית 13, כמו שהודעת לענב מקדם, כמו שכתוב, וירד אדוני בענן, ויתייצב עמו שם, ויקרא בשם אדוני. ויעבור אדוני על פניו, ויקרא אדוני, אדוני, אל רחום וחנון, ערך אפיים, ורב חסד ואמת, נוצר חסד לאלפים, נושא עוון ופשע, וחטא ונקה, וסלחת לעווננו ולחטאתנו, ונחלתנו. סלח לנו אבינו כי חטאנו, מחל לנו מלכנו כי פשענו, כי אתה אדוני טוב וסלח, ורב חסד לכל קוראיך.
The ark is opened and we rise and turn to page 233.
אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, סלח לנו, מחל לנו, כפר לנו.
We're on 233. Skip to page.
שמע קולנו אדוני אלוהינו, חוס ורחם עלינו. שמע קולנו אדוני אלוהינו, חוס ורחם עלינו. וקבל ברחמים וברצון את תפילתנו. השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה, חדש ימינו כקדם. השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה, חדש ימינו כקדם. אל תשליכנו מלפניך, ורוח קדשך אל תיקח ממנו. אל תשליכנו מלפניך, ורוח קדשך אל תיקח ממנו. אל תשליכנו לעת זקנה, כי כלות כוחנו אל תעזבנו. אל תשליכנו לעת זקנה, כי כלות כוחנו אל תעזבנו.
The ark is closed. And just do the red arrow. Just do this. Okay, never mind. You turn the page right. You may be seated. We continue on 234.
אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, סלח לנו, מחל לנו, כפר לנו, כי אנו עמך ואתה אלוהינו, אנו בניך ואתה אבינו, אנו עבדיך ואתה אדוננו, אנו קהלך ואתה חלקנו, אנו נחלתך ואתה גורלנו, אנו צונך ואתה רוענו, אנו חרמך ואתה נותרנו,
אנו פעולתך ואתה יוצרנו, אנו ראייתך ואתה דודנו, אנו סגולתך ואתה קרבנו, אנו עמך ואתה מלכנו, אנו מאמירך ואתה מאמירנו, אנו הזפנים ואתה רחום וחנון, אנו קשי עורף ואתה רחם אפיים, אנו מלא עוון ואתה מלא רחמים, אנו ימינו כצל עובר ואתה הוא שנותיך לא יתמו. נתנו תעבור לפניך תפילתנו ותתרנו. אז לפנים ושעורף לומר לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבינו, צדיקים אנחנו ולא חטאנו, אבל אנחנו ואבותינו ואמותינו חטאנו.
Let's continue with the Shamnu prayer on page 235.
Shamnu, Agadnu, Gazalnu, Dibanu Dofi, Havinu, Vehirshanu, Zadnu, Hamasnu, Tafalnu Sheker, Yatsnura, Ki Zavenu, Latsenu, Maradnu, Niatsenu, Sahararnu, Avinu, Pashanu, Sararnu, Kishino Horef, Rashanu, Shiachatnu, Tiavenu, Tainu, Tietanu. שנו ממצוותיך ומשפטיך הטובים ולא שווה לנו, ואתה צדיק על כל הבא עלינו, כי אמת עשית ואנחנו הרשענו.
Let's read the translation in the English 235 at the top. We abuse, we betray, we are cruel, we destroy, we embitter, we falsify, we gossip, we hate, we insult, we jeer, we kill, we lie, we mock, we neglect, we oppress, we pervert, we quarrel, we rebel, we steal, we transgress, we are unkind, we are violent, we are wicked, we are extremists, yet we yearn to do evil, we are zealots for bad causes. May be seated. We continue on 237.
חטא שחטאנו לפניך באונס וברצון, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך באימוץ הלב. על החטא שחטאנו לפניך ביצר הרע, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך ביודעין ובלא יודעין, והלכולם אלוהי סליחות, סלח לנו, מחל לנו, כפר לנו.
Let's turn to 238 and read responsively. We have sinned against you by throwing off all restraint. We have sinned against you by plotting against others. We have sinned against you through superficiality.
And we have sinned against you through stubbornness.
We have sinned against you by rushing to do evil.
And we have sinned against you through gossip.
We have sinned against you through empty promises.
And we have sinned against you through baseless hatred.
We have sinned against you by betraying trust.
And we have sinned against you by succumbing to confusion.
For all these sins, forgiving God, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement.
ועל כולם אלוהי סליחות, סלח לנו, מחל לנו, כפר לנו.
We continue on page 240 with the Misha Ana Prayer, calling out to the one who answered our ancestors' cries, asking that same one to answer us.
All right, I think most of you will recognize this melody. So we're going to do it together, and Hu Ya'anenu, there are a couple times where I'll repeat Hu Ya'anenu twice.
Misha Ana לשרה ממנו בזקנתה, hu ya'anenu, hu ya'anenu. Misha Ana לאברהם אבינו בהר המוריה, hu ya'anenu, hu ya'anenu. Misha Ana ליצחק בנם כשנעקד על גבי המזבח, hu ya'anenu, hu ya'anenu. Misha Ana לרבקה בהריונה, hu ya'anenu, hu ya'anenu. Misha Ana ליעקב בבית-אל, hu ya'anenu, hu ya'anenu. Misha Ana ללאה בעניה, hu ya'anenu, hu ya'anenu. Misha Ana לרחל בצבונה, hu ya'anenu, hu ya'anenu. Misha Ana ליוסף בבית האסורים, hu ya'anenu, hu ya'anenu. Misha Ana בילדות העבריות על אבנים, hu ya'anenu, hu ya'anenu. Misha Ana ליוכבת על שפת היאור, hu ya'anenu, hu ya'anenu. Misha Ana לאבותינו ולאמותינו על ים סוף, hu ya'anenu, hu ya'anenu. Misha Ana למשה וחורב,
Hoya anenu, hoya neinu. Misha Ana Miriam bivehera. Hoya anenu, hoya neinu. Misha Ana Aharon b'machta. Hoyainu, hoyaneinu. Misha Ana לפנחס במקומו בתוך העדה. הויעננו, הויעננו. Misha Ana לבנות אצל אף אחד בעמדן פתח אוהל מועד. הויעננו, הויעננו. Misha Ana לכל הצדיקים והצדיקיות והחסידים והחסידות והתמימים והתמימות והישרים והישרות והרחמנים והרחמניות. הויעננו, הויעננו.
Let's turn to 242 at the bottom. Rachamana de'ane, de'ane le'aniye aneina. Some of you learned this with me. Rachamana de'ane, de'ane le'aniye aneina. Rachamana de'ane limchikei rucha aneina. Rachamana de'ane litzirei liba aneina. Rachamana de'ane, de'ane le'aniye aneina. Rachamana de'ane, de'ane le'aniye aneina. Rachamana de'ane limchikei rucha aneina. Rachamana de'ane litzirei liba aneina. We turn to page 243 for Avinu Malkeinu. Please rise if you're able as the ark is opened.
אבינו מלכנו חטאנו
Avinu
לפניך.
Malkeinu chatanu lefanecha.
אבינו מלכנו לנו מלך אלא אתה.
Avinu
אבינו מלכנו עשה עמנו כלמען שמך. אבינו מלכנו תהילה. אבינו מלכנו החזירנו בתשובה שלמה לפניך.
Avinu Malkeinu achzirenu b'tshuva shlema lefanecha.
אבינו מלכנו שלח רפואה שלמה לכל עמך.
Avinu Malkeinu shlach refuah shlema lechol amecha.
אבינו מלכנו זכרנו בזיכרון טוב לפניך.
Avinu Malkeinu zachrenu b'zikaron tov lefanecha.
אבינו מלכנו כתבנו בספר חיים טובים.
Avinu Malkeinu kotvenu b'sefer chayim tov.
אבינו מלכנו כתבנו בספר גאולה וישועה.
Avinu Malkeinu kotvenu b'sefer gula v'yeshua.
אבינו מלכנו כתבנו בספר פרנסה וכלכלה.
Avinu Malkeinu kotvenu b'sefer parnasa v'chalkala.
אבינו מלכנו כתבנו בספר זכויות.
Avinu Malkeinu kotvenu b'sefer zchuya.
אבינו מלכנו כתבנו בספר סליחה ומחילה.
Avinu Malkeinu kotvenu b'sefer slicha u'mechila.
אבינו מלכנו המצח לנו ישועה וקרוב. אבינו מלכנו הרם קרן ישראל עמך.
Let's read together in the English on 244 responsively. Avinu Malkeinu, we have sinned in your presence. Our Redeemer who guards us, act kindly in keeping with your name.
You who seek us out and sustain us, make this new year a good one for us.
You who are our glory, our Savior, annul every harsh decree against us.
Ancient One, our rescuer, nullify the designs of our foes.
Provider, our refuge, rid your covenanted people of disease, war, hunger, captivity, and destruction.
You who are our strength, who gives us life, rid us of every oppressor and adversary.
You who purify us and have mercy on us, forgive and pardon all of our sins.
You who form us and instruct us, return us to your presence fully penitent.
You who establish us and provide for us, send complete healing to the sick among your people.
You are beloved, who raises us. Remember us favorably.
Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us for good in the book of life.
Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of redemption.
Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of sustenance.
Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of merit.
Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of forgiveness. And let's read the bold words on the top of 244. Avinu Malkeinu,
Avinu Malkeinu, leman ba'i vayeshuv ma'im kiddush shimcha. Avinu Malkeinu, aseh leman chayim lo leman nehinu. Avinu Malkeinu, chaneinu v'haneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, chaneinu v'haneinu. Ki ene banu mahasim, aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed, v'hoshieinu. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed, v'hoshieinu.
The ark is closed and we remain standing for Kaddish Shalem, page 245.
יתגדל ויתקדש במהרה הבא, בעלמא דברה חירותי, וימלך מלכותי. היכון וביום היכון, ובחייך בית ישראל. בהקהלה ובזמן קריב, ויאמרו אמן.
Amen. יהי שמי
רבה
מברך לעולם
היה. יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דוד דשבחו.
לעילא נקרא ברכתה, ושירתה תשבחתה, ונחמתה תמירן בעלמא,
ויאמרו אמן. תתקבל צלותיהון ובאותיהון דכל ישראל, אדם אבוהון דבשמיה, ויאמרו אמן. יהי שלום רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ויעקב ישראל, ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ויאמרו אמן.
We turn to 246 for Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגהר עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש שברכו. שונות השמיים ויוסד הארץ ומה שבקרוב בשמיים. שכינת וזו בגבי מרומים הוא אלוהינו אלוהות ונקרתנו זהותו כקדמת כי אדוני הוא אלוהים בשמיים. כי המלכות שלך היא, ולמעט תמלוך בכבוד, ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
May be seated as we turn to Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. We recall the following yahrzeits of Benjamin Frank, Lena Lee Seidenberg, Murray Rosen, Gershon Barget, Amelia Davis, Lena Cook, Yetta Krieger, Jane Batt, Helman Brenner, Deborah Aronson Stern, Alan Kester, Eric Morris Menlo, Max Miller, Bessie Arnovitz, Harry Levine, Shirley Tull, Morris Fishman, Edith Ruth Levy, Rose Goldstein, Maurice Berliner, Hyman Oriel, Thelma Garanzik, Jesse Raymond, Nettie Ressler, Morris Levy, Regina Fields, Ruben Mitrani, Max Miller, Bessie Lench, Abraham Douglas, Sharon Braslow, Bernard Davis, Ida Sherman, Bertha Alper, Harry Blecker, Louis Milrad, Eileen Hurwitz, Jacob Shmushkevitz, Louis Katz, Philip Levin, Morris Rubin, Bernard Leibowitz, Ruth Sherman, Saul Kalo, Benjamin Isaacman, Harry Kramer, Julius Shapiro, Sigmund Miller, Harry Strimban, Gail Hyman, Sadie Gura, Samuel Singer, Andrew Beck, Mark Sawicki, Rebecca Korsunsky, William Brody, Norman Miller, Stanley Harrod, and Yetta Hirschfield. May the memories of our loved ones be for a blessing. If you are in mourning or observing yahrzeit, please rise as we recite Kaddish Yatom on page 247. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei rabbah, ve'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam olmei omaya. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudsha brichu. Leila leila mikol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata ta'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who brings harmony on high bring harmony to us and to all Israel and to all who dwell on earth, and let us say amen.
Amen.
Amen. Shana Tova, Gmar Chatima Tova, everyone. It's wonderful to see you all here this evening. We, of course, have services tomorrow beginning at 9 a.m., and we'll be back at 6 p.m. as well for our Mincha and Ne'ilah service here in the sanctuary. And that's most of what's fit to print. We will also be back here for Sukkot. We have a Sukkah dinner that will be coming up in our Sukkah, and an opportunity to shake lulav and etrog with us for the next set of holidays. And also this weekend, offering a spiritual yoga class. We'll do some yoga in the front lawn at Bethel to sort of shake off all of our Yom Kippur woes. So feel free to join me for that if that is of interest to you. All levels are welcome. It will not be a difficult class. So with that, let's turn to page 248 for the Psalm for the Season of Repentance. And I'll invite Baruch up to sing with me again. Let's just do the same one. Achat shalti met Adonai ota avakesh achat shalti met Adonai ota avakesh ota avakesh ay shiti
Little too high.
met Adonai kol yemei chayai lachazot Enom Adonai levaker b'chalom Shiti Adonai kol yemei chayai Lachazov Enoam Adonai Ulevaker. Okay. That went really well.
It reminds me a couple of years ago when you were the rabbi in Monroe. You got up before Yom Kippur and you told a series of knock-knock jokes. I thought that was very appropriate. Anyway.
Whew, it's a holiday of our joy. Okay, just the last line. Lachazot b'noam v'noam Adonai. Okay, and cut. Okay. Also, I wanted to say thank you to everyone who's made services possible this evening, and most especially to our cantor, David Morris. And we will have a closing kavanah before we turn to our final prayer. Go ahead, Debbie.
Al Chet Shechatati Lifanech by Rabbi Rachel Baron-Blatt. I need to speak these words aloud and to know that the universe hears them. I get caught in old patterns and paradigms. I'm stubborn and hard-headed. In the last year, I have missed the mark more than I want to admit. Forgive me, source of all being, for the sin that I have sinned before you. By allowing my body to be an afterthought too often and too easily, by not walking, running, leaping, climbing, or dancing, although I am able, by eating in my car and at my desk mindlessly, and without blessing, by not embracing those who needed it and not allowing myself to be embraced, by not praising everybody's beauty with our quirks and imperfection, by letting my emotions run roughshod over the needs of others, by poking at sources of hurt like a child worrying a sore tooth, by revealing my heart before those who neither wanted nor needed to see it, by hiding love out of fear of rejection instead of giving love freely, by dwelling on what's internal when the world is desperate for healing, by indulging in intellectual argument without humility or consideration, by reading words of vitriol, cultivating hot indignation, by eschewing intellectual discomfort that might prod me into growing, by living in anticipation and letting anxiety rule me, by accepting defeatist thinking and the uncomfortable ache of despair, by not being awake and grateful despite uncountable blessings, by not being sufficiently gentle with my actions or with my language, by not being pliant and flexible, but obstinate, stark, and unbending, by not being generous with my time or with my words or with my being, by not being kind to everyone who crosses my wandering path. For all these, eternal source of forgiveness, help me know myself to be pardoned. Help me feel in my bones that I am forgiven. Remind me that I'm always already at one with you.
Thank you, Debbie. And now we'll close with our final prayer, page 250. Yigdal Elohim chai ve'yishtabach nimtza v'eina el metziuto.
אחד ואין יחיד כייחודו נעלם וגם אין סוף לאחדותו.
Ein lo demut haguf ein haguf lo narach ela kedushato.
קדמון לכל דבר אשר נברא ראשון ואין ראשית לראשיתו.
Ino Adon Olam v'chol notzar yoreh gedulato u'malchuto.
שפע נבואתו נתנו אל אנשי סגולתו ותפארתו.
Lo kam beYisrael kemoshe od navi umabid et emunato.
תורת אמת נתן לעמואל על יד נביאו נאמן ביתו.
Lo yachal Yifrael ve'lo yamir dato le'olamim lezulato.
צופה ויודע סתרנו מביט לסוף דבר בקדמתו.
Gomel leish chesed kemifalo noten lerashara kerishato.
ישלח לקץ ימין משיחנו לפדות מחכה קץ
ישועתו.
מתים יחייל ברוב חסדו, ברוך הדיין שם תהילתו.
מתים יחייל ברוב חסדו, ברוך הדיין שם תהילתו.
Shana tova tichatemu. May be
Tichatemu.
sealed for a good year. Easy fast.